Well, joining me on Talking Pints tonight is author, journalist, to some controversialist, Peter Hitchens. Peter, welcome to the programme.
Well, good evening.
And I say cheers, but you're on a cup of tea instead
it's
of
tea,
me.
yes.
Yes, well, that's fair enough.
Tony Benn tradition. He would have had a bigger mug.
Peter Hitchens, you've had an interesting journey. You were a socialist as a young man.
I was a Trotskyist.
A Trotskyist.
So
you were the full 9 yards on the left.
Completely, yes, the whole way.
And so how does that...
Suicidal Bolshevik.
How does that journey go from where you were?
It's enormous fun. It's tremendously educational. You know what you used to think. You can't pretend that you didn't think it, and in my case, I don't. There are many other people who were in the same political movements when I was there back in the late 60s and early 70s. Keep very quiet about it indeed. I don't, because I think it's essential people know. It's probably one of the best political educations you can get, particularly in realism and in how people actually operate.
And was it a rapid...
I'm sorry for some of the things that I said and did, and always will be, but I'm not sorry for the education I got out of it at all.
And was it a rapid, overnight sort of change of position on issues, or was it a gradual...
No, it's never overnight. What everybody does when they change their mind is they feel a strong pressure to change their mind. You know there's a door over there. You open it, there's something beyond it which you're going to have to face, but you hesitate because you know that, in fact, it will change your life. You'll lose, for a start, almost all your friends. And that puts people off changing their minds.
Yeah, and so you made that move. You finished up actually joining the Conservative Party for a period,
yes, I did.
For a period of time. Now, I'm an ex-Tory.
Terrible mistake.
I'm an ex-Tory as well, although I was in it for a bit. But so where would you place yourself? I mean, you know, I read your stuff in the Mail on Sunday every week and other things that you do, and a lot of people do. Where would you place yourself on the political spectrum today, or isn't that even relevant?
No, it is relevant. I think I would call myself a British Gaullist. It's extraordinary that this combination of strong defence, patriotism, strong welfare state, and national independence isn't more common in politics, because I think it appeals to so many people and suits so many people. But for some reason, this country has not had it and doesn't show any signs of particularly wanting it. But that would be the simplest way of describing it. For those who can remember General de Gaulle.
And what he represented.
You can. But even those who can't, there's a fantastic biography of him by Julian Jackson, which describes this extraordinary life. But it's a very sound position. Something like it exists in the PIS party in Poland, but the problem with them is that they seem to me not to have a particularly strong concern for the rule of law or human liberty, and that has to me to be on top of absolutely everything. Liberty under the law, any British politics has to be based upon that, because that's what keeps us what we are.
And you're right. There are huge numbers of people out there that believe in the country, believe in borders, believe in defence, believe in all those things, and the Brexit referendum was for many people their one real opportunity to go to the polls and to express that, and they did. And I mean, Brexit, where we are today, it's not perfect with Northern Ireland, with fisheries, but we do actually, to a large degree, have got back the ability to run our lives now, don't we?
Well, I completely disagree.
Do you?
No, I didn't take part in the referendum campaign. I didn't vote in the referendum.
Right.
I thought that we should have taken the Norway option. I thought that the referendum was designed to save the Conservative Party rather than the country. I think that was
it was offered
its whole purpose, and I think that
originally, yes,
that's what it has ended up doing.
But we could have gone for the Norway option once we'd had the vote, couldn't we? But we didn't.
We didn't, because the campaign to leave the European Union, which was originally a campaign of people who loved this country and wanted to retain and restore its institutions and independence, was taken over by a bunch of piratical free traders who want nothing of that kind. They simply want to take this country out of the European Union and plunge us into a world of completely, as far as I see, unrestrained free trade, in which instead of being dominated by Brussels, we get pushed around by China. I don't really see it as much of a swap myself.
Well, we can make our own laws, we can regulate our own industries.
Up to a point.
We can control... Well, yes, of course, there are global standards, and if you want to sell a good to America, you've got to meet with their laws, and I understand that. But so you didn't vote for Brexit, didn't participate in the referendum. Do you ever vote for anybody anymore?
I haven't for a long time, no, because I decided that the important thing, the most important task for anybody who's seriously concerned with this country, was the destruction of the Conservative Party. which is the great block which stands across the actual path of any kind of conservative reform, of doing all the things that really need to be done, the moral, social, family things, the educational things, the criminal justice things which need to be done, which the Tory party has for many, many years not been interested in. You, as far as I can see, took a more or less Thatcherite position, where it was all about economics and money.
No, good God.
I thought I thought it was about national independence, law.
That is absolutely wrong, isn't it?
I don't agree. I think it's
wrong.
If anything, for instance, one of the things about you, one of the reasons why
I'm associated with borders.
One of the reasons why we haven't met is because of the position which you espoused. I don't know whether you still do. Back in 2010 on the decriminalisation of drugs.
Well, let's get to that in a minute.
Let's do that.
It's a very important point. It's a very important subject. No, I mean, I think you're wrong. Anyone that sort of thinks of me in terms of the referendum context as being about economics, it wasn't. It was actually about borders. It was about national identity and borders, and that's what most people would identify me with. Although the economics are important, and I'm all for us using Brexit as a means of deregulating. But the one thing, Peter, I want to ask you, having had this little chat with you, and we will move on to other things, of course, lockdown as well. But it does seem to me that nearly everything that you write and say is essentially pretty negative.
Completely. I totally agree.
Okay, well, I'm pleased you agree.
In 2010, by the time the 2010 election came around, I've been arguing for, I think, 7 years that the Conservative Party needed to be destroyed, that it had been taken over by a Blairite tendency led by David Cameron and George Osborne, and was effectively the Blair government in a new form.
It was.
That it was also, at the 2010 election, you couldn't choose the government. Whichever way you voted, you get a Blairite government.
I agree with that.
Probably a Gordon Brown government would have been more conservative than a Cameron government in some ways. I think Gordon Brown was more conservative on the euro for a start than David Cameron ever was, and some other things. So if you were really wanting to choose on those grounds, quite possibly a Brown government would have been preferable. No, wait a minute. This is a very serious point. You could not choose at 2010 who would govern the country. What you could do, by refusing to vote for the Cameron Blairite organisation, was to deprive the Conservative Party of a working and serious majority and of a victory for the fourth time in a row. And that would have done for the Tory party. It would have fallen down. People would have stopped giving money to it. It would have fallen apart. And there would then have been the great opportunity, only opportunity, there's nothing automatic would then happen, for those who wanted this country to be governed.
But it'll never happen.
To build.
It'll never happen.
Well, it won't happen now.
With the first past the post system.
Negative, as you call it.
Well, here's the point. I came closer to breaking this blooming system electorally than anybody. I mean, UKIP got 4 million votes in the general election of 2015, and for our reward, we got 1 seat. And all the while
that's the way it goes. But you then.
So you defend
what about 2019 and the Brexit Party?
Well, if the Brexit Party hadn't happened, Brexit wouldn't have happened.
Withdrawing to get out of the way of the Tory Party,
which I didn't want to do.
But you did.
I didn't want a Corbyn government. I didn't want a second referendum. It was a tough thing to do. Peter, on drugs, I know you are very, very strong in your position on drugs. And by the way, I hate drugs. Absolutely hate drugs. I've never taken an illegal drug in my life. I never want to. And I know so many people that have been damaged by this stuff. Even the soft stuff, as they call it, like cannabis.
That's a public relations meme. Marijuana is not soft.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. I think it does huge psychological damage to people. My position on this has been that, frankly, the war on drugs has been lost, and it may be better if we regulate it in some way. But
you're talking straight out of the drug legalisers playbook when you say those things. There has been no war on drugs.
What would you do?
Well, I would do what the Japanese and the South Koreans do. I would enforce our existing laws against the possession particularly of marijuana, but other drugs as well. You cannot control.
Would you imprison people or fine people?
Let me just make a simple point. You will never ever control anything by interdicting supply, as we do.
Yep.
We send warships to the Caribbean,
yep.
for instance, and we sent soldiers to Afghanistan to destroy crops and prevent drugs reaching you. You will not get anywhere with any of that unless you also interdict demand. And we have in this country a very strict law against possession of drugs. The maximum sentence for possession of marijuana is still 5 years in prison. We don't enforce it. We have deliberately.
Would you enforce it?
Deliberately not. I would enforce it, yes.
Would you?
Oh, yeah, but the question is how I enforce it. And the point about it, people say, well, if you did that, everybody in the country would be in prison. No, they wouldn't. You perhaps old enough to remember the 1967 law against drunken driving and the introduction of the breathalyzer. Within a very, very short time of the serious punishment of people who drove drunk. The amount of drunken driving in this country went zooming downwards. And it's only come back up again lately because the police simply stopped enforcing it. If you enforce a law, then people don't
you really believe we can reverse the drug?
Well, I don't know whether we can reverse it. What I can say is this: the mantra, which comes straight out of the Big Dope playbook, the mantra that the war on drugs has failed is false. There hasn't been.
There's never been. Peter, thank you for coming on. I think I actually could talk to Peter Hitchens for hours. We've barely even started, but I want to thank him for coming on this evening.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.